Your turn.
I'm never speechless, ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I was diagnosed with bipolar after the birth of I wasn't diagnosed. My first trigger in my long ride with bipolar was after the birth of one of my babies. And I didn't get the help I needed then. I tried, but it wasn't there. And I was terribly afraid, being the Prime Minister's wife and then the Prime Minister's ex-wife, to admit that I really was struggling. I'm quite a good actress, so I could hide it most of the time just by putting on a mask, by pretending that this too would pass, and that I thought I could fix myself, as we all do. I thought I was educated, I came from a good family, I was surrounded with love. Why wouldn't I be able to fix myself? Get myself out of these debilitating depressions, which were such thieves. And I thought it was sadness. I thought it was sorrow. I'd read all the books of romance and everything. I thought that's what I was experiencing, that I was just a sensitive soul who suffered. I didn't know that what I had was a serious illness until I couldn't deny it anymore. My worst trigger, of course, in my bipolar roller coaster ride, which I'm not on anymore, by the way, I was was after the death of my son, and then followed 2 years later with the death of my beloved Pierre. And he, as anyone who has helped someone with a terminal illness die, he stopped eating and drinking, of course, before he died. And my brain just took it on. I went home and stopped eating and stopped drinking water, stopped doing anything. I had pushed myself. Bipolar, doesn't that sound like there's two conditions going on here? What was this third? What was this psychosis where I no longer could have any reason? I didn't know why I would get dressed. I didn't know why I would comb my hair. I didn't know why I would open a can of beans. It seemed too much work. I didn't have any ability to relate to my children, to my life. And I wanted my life over. I wanted it to end. I wanted it all to stop. And yet I had 4 children still living, and I had a wonderful life. I had a wonderful history. I had a good family. But the idea of leaving this life, while I didn't make it consciously, it was happening. And when my son Sash got me into the hospital that cold December night in 2000, I was finished. I was 30 pounds less than I am now. I was rag and bones. I had no hope in me. I had no life. I just said what is not true. At that time, I thought I had no hope. But you know what I've discovered? In that in each and every one of us, there is a flame of hope, of optimism, that things will change, things will get better. That's human. But for so many of us, and unfortunately bipolar has the highest rate of suicide, for many of us, the battle's too hard alone. And I found the stigma just daunting. I'd heard so many jokes for so long about mentally ill people, and I didn't want to be the butt of everybody's joke. But my family got me the help I needed. I say that because they did, but you know what? My family couldn't help me. They're a great family. My sons, my mother, my father, nobody could help me. Who had to finally help me was me. I had to accept that I was very ill and I needed help. And I was brought in, unfortunately, like so many poor souls are, on a gurney with police because I was so resistant to the idea of going into a psych ward. Oh, after a few days, when they calmed me down and started getting the proper medication into me to deal with my brain health, my mind finally accepted that I needed help. I needed serious help. How could I live? I remember my mother saying that to me, Margie, how were you going to live your life? And I didn't know how. And I got the help at the Royal Ottawa with the doctors, with the nurses. It was a kind of a shame in a certain deep way that I felt. Being in the hospital at the time, I didn't want anyone to know. They gave me another name. They called me Carol Wilson. And I couldn't remember that I was Carol Wilson. And then I heard one of the patients saying, "You know how crazy that old lady over there is? She thinks she's Margaret Trudeau." I now have learned that we have two things to look at with our mental health and with our being mentally healthy. We need our brain health. Most of us assume our brains are just fine. They're great. They're our brains after all. No, the brain can dysfunction as much as any other organ in the body. In my case with bipolar, it's a chemical thing. The hormones go out of whack, not enough serotonin, too much dopamine for the mania. And so it was getting that part with the scientists, with the research, with the neuroscience. And in the years that I've been around, boy, has it changed. And this new machine that we're getting into the hospital is really going to be able to look at the brain as we never have before and really understand each patient personally, what they're suffering, what's triggering them, what's making them fall into the terrible grave of depression that they can't seem to get out of, or climb up into the madness of mania. I had to learn, and this is what everyone who has bipolar has to learn at some point if they want to have a healthy life, is that you cannot stay in mania. You cannot. You are the life of the party. Oh, it's so much fun. Oh, and how you shop. Oh, and the sex. Oh, no, all bad judgment, all wrong, all fueled by an imbalance in your brain. And you take that away. Nobody wants to take that away, because if you're bipolar, you've been in depression. You've been where you haven't been able to contribute, you haven't been able to be part of, you haven't been able probably to get off the couch because you have no interest in life. That's what depression does. And then when you get up into the mania, woohoo, yay! And everyone at the beginning is so happy that you're back. Yay, she's back. I had to get into the final stage of psychosis in order to understand what I was playing with in allowing myself to be manic, allowing myself not to sleep, not to eat, and to get fueled by this in extraordinary power, I thought. If I'd only found a pen, oh, wouldn't I have written poetry? If I'd had a brush, oh, the paintings I would have made. Because you have genius in the mania. It's not real genius, but it's so much dopamine in the brain, you're just sparking. And that's where all the trouble comes in. Depression is the one that causes the most suicides, but the mania causes the real destruction of your private life, of your family life, of your marriage, of everything. So my quest has been over the last years to try and talk openly about what I went through and the insight that I got from all the treatment I had. It took 3 years to change my mind. I had a really hard time accepting that life is beautiful, that life is worth living, that every day you can find joy, every day through kindness, through being open, through reaching out to people, you can be as happy a human being as you could ever want to be. But when you're caught in the prison of mental illness, you don't have that ability. So what happened to me, I really feel it was like a rebirth for me. When it wasn't quick, and I certainly, when I was listening to Ruth's story, I wish I could have gone upstream and stayed with her for a while. Because when I got out of the hospital, it was very lonely and hard, and I didn't know how to go outside of my house. I didn't know how to face the world yet. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do for someone who is suffering. Not only get them, push them in any way we can to get help, to try and understand that they're not being their best self, that with help they can be their best self. And that's all we want for every human being, to feel happy in your life, content with who you are and what you're doing. I was asked to be an advocate here at the Royal Ottawa when I went to a cocktail party and asked what I could do to help. I really thought I was offering to be on the entertainment or decorating committee for the gala. And instead, Bruce asked me and Catherine asked me to be an advocate, to get out there and talk about it and really try to break down the stigma, try to change people's minds. Well, out of that, since I got better, my life has been so fine. I've been able to write 2 books, I've given endless speeches, and I see the light bulbs going on in the room as people understand what I'm saying, that this is a disease. This is not a state of being. Depression is no way to live. It is an illness. Get help, get out of it. We all want to participate. If I had had my way, or my brain, which was so tricky then, had its way, I'd have missed all of this. I would have missed my 7 grandchildren. I would have missed Justin becoming the Prime Minister. I would have missed my life. And I didn't. Thank you to the Royal Ottawa. I'm very grateful. But I want to say to Jason and Jean-Francois, and to, oh, I'm going to have a blank here. I've got it, Jason and Ruth, of course, and Gail for their work, and Dr. Abigail. I want to thank you for your bravery, for being able to get up. I'm used to this. I've been in the spotlight for so long, defending myself against people's invasions, as I considered them, into my life. But to be able to stand up, as Gail just said, as a real person, an everyday person, and be so brave that you not only can say, I have a problem and I'm dealing with it and I need your support, but I can help others, because I know what it feels like to be trapped in a mental illness. My gratitude is immense, I can tell you. I have one more just funny thing to say to you. We're talking about fault and blame. That's my enemy too. 2 things: denial that you have a problem, or blaming everybody else for your problems. Everybody. I did that too. It wasn't my problem, not my fault. I was told the other day by my grandson, Zav, that it was my fault, Grandma, that Daddy's the Prime Minister. He wasn't happy at that moment because he'd had to stay home alone while Ella Grace, his sister, got to go and meet the Queen. So he was not a happy little Prime Minister's son. And the nanny who was with us said, "What do you mean? Because she gave birth to him? That's why it's his fault?" "No, Grandma, you voted for him." This is such a wonderful evening. I can't believe it. Honestly, the change in the last years since I've started, it's not me, it's everyone. It's a society, it's Canadians who have finally woken up and recognized that our mental health is as important as our physical health. It's all one. And I find it very much easier to talk about brain health than mental health. Mental health is all out there, and that's your mind. But brain health and the research and the science that's coming into these halls is wonderful. And I especially want to thank Dr. Abigail, how wonderful her research is, how hopeful it is for all of us who suffer, who may just decide when we hear that all of this is going on, well, I'll fight another day, even though I don't want to, I'll fight another day. To stop the suicides is my quest. No life should be taken because of despair and sadness and being overwhelmed, when all you have to do is reach out your hand and say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm sad, I'm full of despair, and take off your mask and get the help. Thank you all, and what a night. And let's dance.